Okay, hi and welcome to the October training call. Today we're going to be focusing on health and specifically how to thrive on a healing diet. I'm going to be sharing with you 5 lessons that I've learned on how to thrive on a healing diet. Okay. My name is Florence. Some of you may know me as Achema. And I run a personal growth, a well-being, spiritual growth and potential website called Faith Health Potential. And what I do on that website is I support people who want to create a life, an authentic life that they love living, and really just break free of the shackles that have stopped them from being who they fully are, who they have been created to be, whether that's internal baggage, well-being issues, external factors, anything at all that stops them from truly expressing and being who they are. And one of the things that can do that is obviously your health. And my own personal experience is one of having an autoimmune or chronic illness. And I know from first-hand experience how that can make you feel. So before we go into the meat of today, I'm just going to go through what I call the 4 Ds. It's like when you're on an aeroplane and you've got the hostess that, gives you the comfort and safety check. So this is a little bit like that, but based around training. So the 4 Ds. Number 1, the duration. The duration of this training should be about an hour. It may be a bit over an hour 15 minutes, but it's around the hour mark. Distractions. I know that it can be really easy to be distracted in this digital age that we're in by emails, pings, other things like Facebook, TV, and even family. But for this hour that you're here listening to this webinar, I would ask that you just switch off any distractions or move away from any distractions so that you are focused and able to give your fullest attention to this. The next D is drink. I know that I need some water because it aids concentration and I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. How about you? Maybe you want to go and grab yourself a drink or have some water next to you or some other thing that you can nibble on while you're listening. Hopefully it's going to be healthy, but we're going to learn a bit more about that as we go on. And lastly, discussion. I turned off the discussion or the chat box, but a bit later on I'll be happy to turn that back on if you have any questions at the end or anything like that. Okay, there will be a recording available of this, but it will be only available for a limited time. If you think this information is going to be useful for people that you know and care about, that you believe are struggling with an autoimmune chronic condition or anything like that, please feel free to refer them back to this recording. Also, I will be sharing with you today how to get a resource pack that I've especially created that contains more of this information inside, and I'll be sharing that with you at the end of the training session. So if the information in this session is useful, then please hang on to the end where I'll be sharing with you about how to get your hands on the resource pack. Okay, so let's move forwards then, shall we? I just want to quickly check that you can see the slides. So, if you can just let me know whether you can see what you can see on the screen. Can you see the slides? Okay, great. Okay, so today's training is really for people who have an ongoing and often inexplicable illness. So generally when people become sick or suffer with some kind of illness, there's usually ones that doctors kind of like understand and know about, and there's really ones that really stump doctors. So this is for anybody who has an ongoing illness and struggles to understand the reasons behind their illness. It's also for anybody who's interested in finding out more about going down a diet route, but you're really confused about some of the issues, some of the concerns around how to use diet to heal. It may be that you want to know whether it's the right thing for you or what's actually involved in it. So you have some questions around that. Maybe you know a little bit about it, but it's quite overwhelming and confusing, and you really want a kickstart or beginner's guide to helping you thrive on a healing diet. So what I did with this is I wanted to create something that I would have wanted somebody to share with me right at the beginning of my journey. So it's the training that I would have loved somebody to walk me through when I first started. Okay, so let's move on. So what qualifies me to share this information with you? Well, first up, I'm going to say, hands up, that I'm not an expert. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a naturopath. I'm not a dietitian. And I'm not a health coach in the normal sense of the word. Who I am and what I am is somebody who has been on this journey. It took me 6 years to get a diagnosis, and during those 6 years, I really struggled to be heard. And I had to find ways of dealing with what I was going through, and the only route available to me, because medication wasn't available to me because doctors didn't believe that there was anything wrong with me, I had to find alternatives to helping myself, and many of those alternatives were natural or alternative health solutions, and one of those was diet. So I had to learn about diet and how to use diet to help me to really live life and move forward. Diet has been such a great benefit to me. 70% of the time I'm not on medication at all. And if I am taking medication, I'm taking the very lowest dose of the medication. On average, for people with the disorder that I've been diagnosed with, the dose is 300 milligrams upwards. On a really, 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 really bad day, I take 75 milligrams. If I'm taking medication at all, it's around 25 milligrams. But 70% of the time, I don't need to take any medication at all. Symptoms-wise, I have been very blessed as well. So on average, I'm around 70% symptom-free. And on really good days, that comes up to about 90 to 95% symptom-free. But I want to tell you that, in all honesty, I've only been following a strict healing diet for about a year. And during this time, I haven't been perfect on this diet. I've struggled, I've fallen off the wagon, I've made mistakes, and I've eaten food that I shouldn't have been eating, yet I've seen such great benefit to my health and well-being. So I know that a change in diet, it does work. And that's really what I want to share with you today. So what will we cover today? So 4 things. Number 1, 3 reasons why diet is so important for you and your healing. Number two, there's been questions about what is a healing diet. Technically, a healing diet is a word that I've made up, but there are healing diets out there, and I'm going to explain what a healing diet is and how it differs from other kinds of diets. Number three, signs that a healing diet might be for you. And I want to share a little bit about my reason for starting a healing diet. Maybe you can see yourself in my story. And then lastly, 5 key lessons I learned along the way that I would have wanted somebody more forward in the journey to share with me. Okay. So 3 reasons why diet is so important. Number one, the first major reason why your diet is so important is because food is medicine. You've heard this before, food is medicine. And there's a famous quote that says, 1/4 of what you eat keeps you alive, the other 3/4 keeps your doctor alive. Food is medicine. You know, food has nutrients that our body needs to not only function properly, but to thrive. Most of us don't understand how our food can be medicine. But the reason why is because food has nutrients in it that our body needs. And when we eat, we only have enough space in our stomach. So if we're eating 3 meals a day, 3 square meals a day, there's only a certain amount of food that we consume, and therefore the food that we consume carries a certain amount of nutrients in it. And it's really down to the density of nutrients in the foods that we consume. If the food is what we call low in nutrients, then that is going to affect the ability of our body to not only function, but to thrive. And when we're in a desperate time, so when we're going through a period of stress and illness, our body needs more nutrients in order to function, let alone to thrive. When we feed our bodies inadequate amounts of nutrients, it stops working properly. And if we do that over a longer period of time, our body just starts to get confused and overwhelmed. If you think about an office worker who is undernourished and overworked ends up, making mistakes, getting tired, feeling run down, slowing down, getting upset and irritated, and our body is just like that. In order for our body to do the things that we want it to do, to function in a way that will enable us to do things that we want to do, we have to make sure that we don't overwork our body and we don't undernourish our body. But hey, our fast-paced lifestyle and our nutrient-low Western diet means that we are failing even before we get out of the race kind of like barriers to start really supporting our body so that it can function and thrive. And I could go into the doom and gloom of low nutrients in the soil and intensive farming methods and bemoaning the fact that, the world as we know it is set against us because of, the foods that we're consuming. But I'm not going to go down that road. You just need to know that food is medicine, and it's important that your food is as high in nutrients or as nutrient dense as you can make it. Okay, so the second reason then. The second reason why food and diet is important is because most of us have digestive issues without even knowing it. There are 2 types of digestive issues that have been implicated in chronic conditions, autoimmune conditions, invisible illnesses, and things like that, which you may have heard of: leaky gut syndrome and gut dysbiosis. And I'm just going to go into these a little bit. You know, for most of our lives, we have become dependent on drugs to get us through difficult situations. I know I have. I've taken painkillers, antibiotics, really without thinking about the long-term effects that this would have on my health. But these things, such as antibiotics, painkillers, corticosteroids, they all affect our health and our immune system via our digestive system. You've probably heard that if you take too many painkillers, it will cause things like stomach ulcers and things like that. If you take too many antibiotics, it messes up your gut flora, your ecosystem, and it can cause things like yeast overgrowth, candida, which has its own issues as well. So these things attack our digestive system, and when we accompany these things along with foods that naturally kind of irritate the lining of our gut wall, then what we do is we undermine our health in a way that causes gut dysbiosis and leaky gut syndrome. Now, leaky gut syndrome is when your digestive system starts to develop small holes in its walls. And it means that the things that should really stay on the inside of your digestive system begin to go out of your digestive system, move into your bloodstream. So they go out of the walls of your digestive system. And the problem with this is that your immune system then goes on attack because it sees these things as foreign invaders, and you begin to react to the things that are coming out of your digestive system, out of your gut wall. And the things that can come out of your gut wall are things like food. So food that hasn't been broken down properly, that isn't supposed to go through your gut wall in that way. Your immune system begins to see these as foreign invaders, and that's how we develop sensitivities to certain foods, because our immune system sees these things as bad for us, harmful for us. Other things that come out through our digestive system, so it could be the bacteria and the yeast that is supposed to be in our digestive system, but because of these tiny holes, they go through the walls in our gut lining, and it causes things like candida and other complications, and it really just ramps up our immune system so that it is on high alert when it shouldn't be. And if you can imagine, like I said before, your immune system is constantly working and it becomes tired and it starts to get confused, and that's how autoimmune conditions start to develop. The other way is gut dysbiosis. And really what this is the flora in your digestive system is out of balance for whatever reason. And it can often mean that the food that you should be digesting to give nutrients to your body is being eaten by the overgrown bacteria or yeast inside of your digestive system. In some cases, it can mean that food is left for ages in your digestive system, just festering. And again, if you've got leaky gut syndrome, these toxins that you should be eliminating but are remaining in your digestive system, they filter out through your gut lining into the rest of your body, again causing issues. So we can begin to see how food via your digestion can implicate or have an effect on your health and well-being. The third area, or the third reason why diet is important, is because of inflammation and immune system breakdown. So your diet can work for you or it can work against you. When your diet begins to work against you and your body, it's a stressor. In other words, it causes stress to your body. And if you know anything about the stress response at all, then there's a chain reaction of things that happen as soon as something is perceived by your body as a stressor. There are stress hormones released, and these stress hormones can cause inflammation. Inflammation is okay at a low level because it's your way of your body trying to protect yourself. But if you are constantly inflamed, if there's constant inflammation, this wears out your immune system and you begin to develop a chronic condition. So when your body is inflamed by food stressors, you are most likely to be at your worst symptoms-wise. One of the things I noticed was I actually got worse when I ate food. This was back in the day, I would just eat and I would feel awful. And that was because the food that I was eating was actually a stressor for me. It was activating my immune system, and my immune system was going on high alert trying to protect me. But because I had this condition, which, my body wasn't recognizing a part of itself as belonging to it, it was actually attacking me. So every time I ate food and it activated my immune system, part of that activation meant that it was also attacking me, so I was feeling a lot worse. And for a while, I became really scared to eat because I just didn't know what was causing all these issues, what food was causing all these issues. By dealing with the foods that act as a trigger, what you do is that you reduce your immune system activation. You calm your immune system down, and that means that the inflammation goes down as well, and it allows your body to begin to heal. Well, I've described these 3 different reasons to you in the most basic way that I can, because this stuff is really heavy in science. I mean, there are people that really, really go into the science of all of this, and it can be a bit overwhelming and mind-boggling. And as I said, I've created a resource at the end, which I'll share with you, but there are plenty of resources off and online that can go into the science of this if that's what you need to help you. So the 3 reasons, I'll just go over them again, why diet is so important is, number 1, to get the nutrients you need for your body to thrive and function. Number 2, to support digestion. So any complications with your digestion can result in bad health. Also, food can act as a stressor. And what that means is that those foods that are acting as a stressor are you're more likely to develop a food sensitivity or a food intolerance to those particular stressors. Okay. I've actually got it on this slide here to summarize. The end result of this is actually often a chronic or autoimmune condition. You'll be surprised at how many people in the world, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, they call autoimmune disease a Western disease. Many people in third world developing countries don't suffer from chronic or autoimmune conditions to the same extent as people in the West do. It's reported that up to 23.5 million Americans have an autoimmune disease of some sort. And when we compare this to things like cancer, which affects 9 million Americans, and heart disease, up to 22 million Americans, we can see that autoimmune disorders, they're a real issue for health and well-being. In fact, researchers believe that there is about a 4% increase in autoimmunity each year. And right now, researchers are suggesting that there are up to 140 autoimmune conditions. So they're finding links to autoimmune conditions in things that, we might not have thought of before, such as rheumatoid arthritis. blood pressure, low blood pressure, high blood pressure, diabetes, and things, and other common ones that we know more of, such as multiple sclerosis, lupus, and the rare illness that I've been diagnosed with, which affects the central and peripheral nervous system. So, generally speaking, autoimmune conditions, they get worse when you are under extreme stress of any sort. And it makes your immune system work harder and therefore become more active. And because of this, your immune system becomes a stressor for you. And so it kind of like does the whole cycle thing of you are stressed, your immune system ramps up, your immune system stresses you out, you are stressed, and it goes on and on and on again. And this overload is often just enough to kickstart an autoimmune condition. People also often find that they go through a period of intense stress, or they feel run down and develop a flu or virus just before the autoimmune condition kicks in. Okay. So what is a healing diet then? So we can see why a healing diet is so important, because we really need to calm down our body, our immune system, number one, and then we need to support our body in healing. So normal diets, they don't do this. Normal diets are generally focused on things like losing weight or learning to eat a more balanced diet. They are not focused on reducing your symptoms and nurturing healing. So a healing diet aims to up your nutrient intake. So they call it like high density nutrient intake. So everything that you're eating, everything that you're consuming has the highest nutrients that you can consume. It's aimed at healing digestive issues. So, you know, what I spoke about, the leaky gut and the gut dysbiosis. So healing those things so that food is not going through the particles in your digestive system and triggering off your immune system. And also remove food stressors. So removing foods that commonly are believed to trigger off inflammation and immune response. And there are different types of healing diets. There are so many out there. Probably, you know, as I speak, somebody's kind of thinking of a new one to bring out. But the most popular ones are the autoimmune protocol, which is a framework that I basically follow, paleo diet, SCD, or specific carbohydrate diet, GAPS, or the gut and psychology syndrome diet, Candida diet, adrenal diet, Wall's protocol by Dr. Terry Walls, and so on. There are literally so many different types of healing diets out there. And generally, each healing diet focuses on particular conditions and things like that. So it's good to know what some of the differences between these diets are. And again, I refer to that in the resource pack at the end. Okay. I'm just going to have some water. Okay. So how to tell if you need a healing diet? This is, you know, something that people often speak to me about. How do I know that a healing diet is going to work for me? Well, I want to share a little bit of my story with you, and maybe you'll begin to see yourself in my story, see some of the things that affected me and see some of the signs, because what this really is about are some of the signs that might point towards you needing to take up a healing diet. Okay, so before I fell ill, I actually ate whatever I wanted to. And that was mostly chips, burgers, chocolate, soft drinks, and the like. When I was younger, around 10, my dream was to be able to eat as much McDonald's as I wanted to. That was literally my dream. I loved that food. Most of my food as an adult, working a full-time job as a teacher, busy career, most of my food came out from packets, food that I could easily, just chuck into the oven, pour into pots and stir, put into the microwave, and if I was feeling really, really healthy, I would just put some salad on the side. As I said, I also had an extremely stressful job as an inner city teacher. When I fell ill, I realized that I couldn't eat a lot of those foods anymore. In fact, it seemed to me, as I said to you, that eating only made my symptoms worse. I can remember being in so much pain that I found it really difficult to walk up and down stairs. My muscles ached, my joints ached. I felt so old. At the time, I was like 27, but I felt so old. And I was just putting on weight. I looked inflamed. At that point in time, in the UK, Gillian McKeith, she was the reigning star. She had a show called You Are What You Eat. So I bought myself one of her books and also one of her liver cleanse kits. God must have put something in my mind that just made me think, okay, I need to just do something with my health. At that time, I always had suffered from bad skin, really greasy, oily skin, acne. But after this cleanse, and to be honest, I didn't even finish the cleanse because the thought of, there was a part where you had to mix grapefruit with some herbs and some olive oil and drink that down a certain number of times a day, go to the toilet and, see these like gallstones come out. That just freaked me out. So I stopped before that bit. But the bit that I did do, I saw some great effects from that. At that time, I also stopped eating chocolate, and I cut out dairy and I cut out wheat. And what happened was I began to notice that I was passing stool more regularly. As a young child, I really suffered with constipation and bloating to the extent that I had to go to hospital. So I found it really difficult to go to toilet regularly. But after this cleanse and cutting out those things, I began to go to toilet really, really regularly. But it wasn't until 2010 when I was led down a specific route of kind of like doing what I called a Passover cleanse at that time, that I took out gluten and other things and followed a more or less anti-candida diet, that my energy levels began to increase and I started to feel a lot better. My weight, actually, which was a UK size 14, it went down to about a size 8 in about 6 weeks. I felt better. I knew I definitely looked better, and I had the energy and the inclination to want to socialize without feeling horrible or anxious. As I said, I wasn't on any medication at that time. So anytime I would go out, I would just take all my supplements and put them in my bag just in case of emergency. But whilst I was on that cleanse, I was able to psychologically let go of those supplements and to just allow myself to go out without worrying about what would happen to me if I wasn't in the security of my home, surrounded by all the things that I would normally need to make me feel safe or comfortable. So I'm sharing this story with you because I want you to begin to see whether there is any kind of similarity to your own case history. My case history, it shows a number of things. For example, eating made my symptoms worse. I had some weight problems as well. I suffered from bloating, flatulence, digestive issues. I was anxious. I had bad skin, mood swings. I suffered from stress. I was not a nice person to be around at all. Very, very highly strung, irritable. Another thing that I experienced was whenever I did pass store, my symptoms seemed to go down. I had a history of antibiotics because I was always getting chest infections and things like that. Painkillers because I had a very, very painful menstrual cycle. So I was taking all of these things. And as I said, I had repeated illnesses, chest infections, sinus infections, different things like that. And these are just a few of the things that might hint towards you maybe needing a healing diet. These things, what they actually do is that they point towards signs of a chronic underlying condition. These are all signs of inflammation in your body, and inflammation left untreated will result in an autoimmune disorder. So these are your body's ways of speaking to you and telling you, hey, you know, I'm suffering here. I'm doing my best, but I need you to look into your lifestyle and to really begin to help me to help you. And in case you're wondering what other signs there are, I did a video outlining 11 signs and symptoms that you may need to look into a healing diet. And I've put the link there on the screen. On my website on theroadtohealing.org.uk. And if you just go to the healing section or the health section, you can find all the different articles and things that I've written on that area. If you need this at the end, or actually I might just put it in, the chat a bit later on, but if you need it in the end, I can give that to you. Okay, so moving on then. Okay, 5 key lessons I have learned along the way. So these are things that, you know, I would have wanted somebody to share with me right at the beginning, so that I saved myself a lot of the heartache, the frustration, the money, resources, time, energy, etc., 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 that I used up trying to figure it all out by myself. So the first thing I want you to know is that you are you. You know, you are what we call a bio-individual. And that basically means that, you know, your body, your biology is different. It's unique to anybody else's. And often, you know, all these healing diets, they seem to have a one-size-fits-all approach. But the chances are that it's not going to work for you. And you need to understand that from the get-go. And why I say this is because when I speak to people about healing diets, you know, they come back to me and say, oh, well, you know, I tried this diet, but it didn't work for me, or I gave up gluten and nothing happened, or in fact, it made me worse. But, you know, hey, you are an individual. You know, just because something doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. What it means is that you have to tailor it to work for you. The truth is that not everybody responds to gluten, which is the major culprit in many of these healing diets. Not everybody responds to gluten in the same way. Some people have celiac disease. In fact, research suggests that 1 in 3 people react adversely to gluten. So that's 40% of the population. But many of these people, their reaction will be it will be less intense than what we would expect. It will be an underlying reaction that will build up over time and cause a problem. So it's not like you've eaten something and, you know, you're gasping for breath or suddenly this happens to you. No, it's often something that builds up over time. So many of these people have a gluten sensitivity without even knowing it. Me, hands up, I had a gluten sensitivity without even knowing it. And there's gluten in so many things. I'm just eating all these foods without realizing what it was doing to my body. Research has shown that certain people are more at risk of gluten sensitivity. They may have other ailments such as irritable bowel syndrome, esophageal reflux disease or GERD, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, depression, neurological disorders, iron deficiency, and a list of all other things. So there are things that make you more susceptible to gluten sensitivity. But even if you are one of those people who are not, who do not respond adversely to gluten, it's highly likely that you are reacting adversely to something. It may be a gluten-related grain or other food. For example, I found out that I react not only strongly to gluten, but also oats. But on top of this, and more than gluten and oats, I react extremely strongly to corn. And the problem with this is that corn is in mostly all gluten-free foods. So while I thought I was being good eating gluten-free foods, I was eating foods with corn, and it was just making me feel worse. So if you start to take gluten out of your diet and you find that it's not making any difference, or that it's making you feel worse, it could be that there's still something in your diet that is acting as a trigger to your immune system. I actually believe that many people react negatively to corn without knowing it, and that's because corn is a GM product. It's been genetically modified, and that means that our body finds it really hard to digest this food, and is therefore more likely to see it as a stranger and react adversely to it. But because corn is genetically modified, it's cheap. They feed it to livestock. They put it in food to thicken it. They put it in supplements. They put it in medicine. So and it's in fast food as well. The burgers have corn in it, and the baps have corn in it, and even the fries have corn in it. So we're consuming all this food with corn without even realizing that we're doing so. One of the major things that I really learned from this whole experience was that the foods that you crave and eat the most often are often the foods that are causing you the most problem. For example, I love chocolate. I love chocolate. When I took chocolate out of my diet, I felt better. Every now and again, if I eat too much chocolate, I feel worse. So it's likely that the foods that you are craving and eat the most often are actually the foods that act as a trigger or a stressor to your immune system and cause inflammation. The other thing I learned was how to listen to my body. It's so important. I can now tell when I'm about to go over the edge. There are certain things that my body does to tell me, Achama, you're beginning to push your limits here, and you need to kind of like rein in and start thinking again about how you're eating. And this is really useful because it's like a superpower in a sense. It's your way of understanding your body's needs. You need to understand how your body is communicating with you, and all those signs and symptoms are your body's way of speaking to you. You just have to learn to understand what they are saying. Okay. So lesson 2 is to be proactive. At the end of the day, your body is your responsibility. Your health is your responsibility. And if you allow yourself to, you can be the potential expert of you. Nobody else can understand you like you do because you are the one walking in your shoes. And I learned this when I went to see a naturopath to help me with some issues that I was having around energy level. I went through a time when I was waking up in the morning around 10 a.m. By the time it reached like 2 p.m., I was absolutely tired. By the time it was 5 p.m., I was so exhausted that I was finding it hard to breathe. I would need to sleep for 3 hours. And I had a history of anemia, but I knew that anemia never made me feel this way. There was something else. So what I did was I invested in some tests. I invested in an adrenal fatigue test and a thyroid test. I also, or a bit later on, invested in some food intolerance tests, which I'll tell you a bit about. But I took the results of these tests, which showed me that I was adrenally exhausted. I was at the lowest stage of where my adrenal glands, they were really, really struggling, and I was so tired. And I had subclinical hypothyroidism. But both of these things were not recognized or are not recognized medically. So when I went and showed my GP these results, they were like, you know, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, kind of thing. But I knew that there was something wrong with me. So I went and I saw a naturopath, a functional specialist, a functional medicine specialist. And I went to see a lady who specialized in hormones because I had my adrenals and my thyroids, which were both playing up. And she prescribed me with some supplements. And, you know, I was so happy to get this list of supplements. It must have cost me like £100 to get these supplements on top of what it cost me to go and see this functional medic. And I started to just, you know, take these supplements, you know, thinking that, oh, yeah, this is going to make me better. This is all going to make me better. But they actually made me worse. It made me so worse that I developed a cold, and then more or less straight after that, a cold sore. And I hadn't had a cold sore like in 5 years. But only now, when I look back at the ingredients to what was in those supplements, it had things in it that I react strongly to. No wonder I was taking all these things thinking that they would make me better, but actually they were just stressing my immune system. So what I'm saying by this is that you need to take responsibility for your health. Ultimately, whenever somebody gives you advice or tells you to take a medication or supplement, you need to be the one to assess whether it's right for you. For example, you can check ingredients for contaminants. If I was going to do this all over again, what I would do is I would basically start to keep a food journal and a symptoms diary to make sure I understand for myself what I'm eating and how what I'm eating is affecting my body, so the symptoms that result from what I'm eating. I also did a food intolerance test, a comprehensive food intolerance test, very scientific, not the hair strand test, which tested 3 things: IgA, IgM, and IgG. These are all, I believe, antibodies. And what these did was tell me how strongly I was reacting to different foods. And that's how I found out basically that many of the foods that I was eating along with the food journal and the symptoms diary were not good for me. But I had to do that because I wasn't going to get it on the NHS. I wasn't going to get the support I needed on the NHS, so I needed to be proactive and take responsibility for my health. Okay. Lesson 3. Start easy and start small. It's so easy to jump into a healing diet like I did. That was the mistake that I made. You know, hey, here's an autoimmune protocol, and so many people have had excellent results on this, and you know what? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get my healing, and everything is going to be hunky-dory. But it didn't work out like that. And if you don't know, autoimmune protocols, healing diets are very expensive, and there's a steep learning curve. So it actually made me worse in a sense, because when I jumped into it, I started eating all the foods that were on the list. But again, some of those healthy foods, because they are healthy, were not healthy for me. You know, one man's food is another man's poison. So it's all about being bio-individual, recognizing that you are you. The best thing that I would recommend for anybody to do is not jump straight into a healing protocol, because you do not know exactly how your body is going to react to it. And if the reaction is so severe, it could make you want to leave that protocol fully, and you don't know the impact that starting on that slowly and kind of like stepping into that will have on your health. So the wrong approach can make you suffer more than you need to. I would suggest personally that you start off with an elimination diet. So an elimination diet is really all about eliminating the foods that are supposed to be the key triggers to inflammation and an autoimmune response. So these are foods such as gluten, dairy, soy. Soy and corn are both GMO products. So people react to soy and maybe corn in the same way. Eggs, pork, beef, chicken, beans, lentils, legumes, coffee, citrus fruits, nuts, nightshade vegetables such as tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, and potatoes. That obviously leaves you with foods such as rice, meat, turkey, fish, lamb, most fruits and most types of vegetables, and pseudo grains for you to consume. This is the simplest way of stepping into a healing diet. And what this does is help you begin to see what foods are triggering off a response as first reaction in you. After you've done this for a period of 28 to 30 days, then you would start to reintroduce foods and monitor your symptoms to see how it's affecting you. If it doesn't affect you, then you know that that food is okay for you. If it does affect you, then you know that that food isn't okay for you. If you find that it's not working for you, then the chances are that, one, you are some way contaminating what you're eating so that you're still eating foods on the no list, or the foods that you are eating, somewhere in that group is a food that you are reacting adversely to. Ultimately, if you choose a healing diet, that healing diet should be a framework for you to build on and adapt so that it reflects your needs, the needs of your body. The question you should be asking yourself is, what does my body need in order to function and thrive optimally? So you use the healing diet as a protocol and as a framework and not a Bible. Okay, lesson 4. Don't neglect your weaknesses. And this is quite a big thing. It has been a big thing for me. And I know, speaking to other people, you know, we all have our weaknesses when it comes to following guidelines and being strict and things like that. And there are 3 main weaknesses or 3 main challenges that I see. Number 1, practical challenges. things like not having enough time, not having enough energy, not having enough money, not being creative, so eating the same foods over and over again and becoming really bored and disaffected with the healing diet and the protocol. Psychological. So your emotional state, your mental well-being, your attitude, whether you're getting support while you're on the diet or not from people that you care about, whether you are eating emotionally. These kind of things can affect your ability to stay on course. Physiological things, whether you are sensitive to any of the foods in the protocol but you don't realize it. Other complications, there are other things that come out, such as, for me, I found out that I don't do well with foods high in histamine. So whenever I eat those foods, I feel worse. I have to adapt the protocol that I'm following to take that into consideration. There are other things that I have had to do to adapt the protocol to take my weaknesses into consideration. For example, I had to start a rotation diet because it was so difficult for me to pinpoint what I was actually reacting to. The only way that I could begin to master that was through a rotation diet. I had to think about the reasons I was most likely to fail whenever I felt down, whenever I felt stressed, whenever I was upset, I'd be more likely to reach for foods that I shouldn't reach for. So I had to develop strategies that enabled me to deal with those things. I'm not that creative in the kitchen. I love cooking, but I'm not that creative in the kitchen, and I kind of resent being in the kitchen all the time trying to, find food to eat. But what has helped me is recipe books, visiting websites where, people who are strong in the areas that I'm weak can support me, joining up support groups, going on courses that help me in my areas of weakness, such as the AIP Batch Cook course. These things have enabled me to work around my weaknesses, so I'm more likely to stay on course. If I had known about many of these things, it would have helped me right at the beginning, when I was really struggling to such an extent that I wanted to just give up, such an extent that, I was like, hey, God, where are you? I'm trying all these things, but, none of these things are working for me. And it really stretched my faith. So I know that, when you neglect your weaknesses, when you don't take them into consideration, you could be really jeopardizing your chances of success. Okay, lesson 5, this is also a big one. Don't sweat it. Just don't sweat it. Okay, most of the time, people with a chronic condition or autoimmune disorder, they tend to have type A personalities. They are what we would call control freaks. They like to be in charge of things. They like to control things, and it often results in a perfectionistic attitude towards things. And that can result in a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of fear. And all of that just triggers the stress response, makes you feel worse, and activates your immune system even more. Don't take it too seriously. God made your body to heal itself. That's mega. That's so amazing. He made your body to heal itself. All it needs is a little bit of support from you, and it will do what it has been created to do. The world won't end if you slip up in some way, okay? You don't have to think that if you miss one meal, or if you slip up in some way, then that means everything is going to crash to the ground. All your hard work will crash to the ground. No, that's not it at all. The more you think that, the more stressed you'll be, and the more it will affect the ability of your body to heal. So what you need to do is focus instead on being positive and building resilience. There is so much research that shows how positivity, resilience, personal growth, spiritual growth, and things like that have a positive impact on your health, well-being, and the ability of your body to heal. So those things are so important. Yes, look after your body, look after your health, but also enjoy living, enjoy your life, accept where you are now and just get on with it. There is plenty of research that show that people who just accept where they are now and get on with it, they go into remission. They call it spontaneous remission. So my tip would be to go with the flow. Believe in healing, support your body to heal, but don't get overwhelmed by all the doomsday science that is out there. Okay, so we are coming to the end of this training, and I hope that you've got so much out of it. It's taken me about a year of mistakes and a year of learning to get to where I am now, where, as I said at the beginning, 70% of the time I'm not on medication. And there are people who do healing diets where they totally control, manage their symptoms, and go into remission just through their diet. I want you to think about a couple of things. I want you to think about what is your main takeaway point from today's training. What can you take away to help you start moving forward? I also want you to think about whether diet could be the right route for you. And if it was the right route for you, what do you think your greatest weakness might be in relation to your diet and starting a healing diet? Okay, so what now? So as I mentioned at the beginning, I have created a resource pack. And that resource pack is really with all the information that has been useful to me, that I have accumulated and that has really supported me. It will contain this MP4. It will also contain an information pack that has a resource guide, a symptoms checklist, so a signs and symptoms checklist, how to see whether a healing diet is right for you. It has a food planner and a rotation quick start guide. So how to start a rotation diet. It also has some other templates in there for you and some other resources in there for you. It contains my Hope for Healing ebook. This was something that I wrote when I was going through my worst period of time on the healing diet, and I was at my lowest, my absolute lowest place, and God just lifted me up and really just changed my whole attitude and mindset, my whole belief system around healing and using diet to heal. And this has really supported me and helped me grow as a person. And I want to share that with you. So that's my Hope for Healing ebook. And also a 30-minute Skype consultation with me to discuss areas of weaknesses that you might have, questions that you might have, and how to move forward so that you are able to function and thrive more quickly than what I did when I first started the healing diet. And that's available for just £17. If you would like to find out more about this and to get your own, then you can email me at achama@faithhealthpotential.com. Okay, so that's it for today's training. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to just type them into the chat box. I'll just wait and see if there are any questions. Okay. So there don't seem to be any questions. So I'm going to call it a day. I hope that you've had some information here which has been useful for you, and that you've been able to clarify in your mind what a healing diet is and how it might be able to support you on your own healing journey. Oh, great. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Nemo. Yeah, sugar is a big one. Can cause inflammation. Well, if you want any other support around this area, you can always email me and I will be happy to support you further. Okay, that's it. I'm going to just stop recording. Okay, once again, if you feel that this is going to be of benefit to anybody in your life, then please feel free to share the page with them. Take care. Bye.